Good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome to the second webinar conducted by IIA Delhi Chapter Women's Circle in this 2021. IIA Delhi Chapter is believing that the role of the women and inclusion and with the increased stress on the inclusion and diversity, it has to be increased. Everyone has a story to share, a story to tell, a lesson to teach, and a wisdom to share. Let's hear today the stories from the leaders. And with all of us, we have Mr. Siddheshwar Bhalla, who is president of IIA Delhi chapter. So Siddheshwar is the president of IIA Delhi chapter and partner and leader GRC Mazars India. He is also the special invitee to the internal audit standard boards of ICAI. And he's a very active speaker on corporate governance at multiple forums, including ICI, CS Institute, Institute of Directors, IIA, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, PhD chambers, etc., etc. So in past, he was associated with Deloitte, KPMG, EY, BDO, GE, NMRIG, and is currently working as the partner and leader with Mazars. So for the opening remarks, I request Mr. Siddheshwar Bhalla to set the context for today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Sana, and welcome to all the participants. It's a Friday evening and we have a flurry of webinars going on. I think this is one of the unique ones, and it has to be because it is the wow factor. So I'm going to tell something, narrate something which I think in the coming years, many will narrate. And this is something which I'll say I'll take you a year back, almost a year back now. We are in September. And this platform, not the II, but the platform of the Women's Circle, was actually inaugurated in October last year, 18th of October, 2019. I can't forget the date because along with Sana, I have sown the seeds, and Kanwaljit also. In the initial days I'm talking about, and gradually, yes, it has spread across India. Now we have all the chapters, IA chapters having Women's Circle. We have a governance framework also, which is in place. So I think the momentum has been really good. It has been exciting. And to some extent, I would say that the pandemic, which is COVID, it has not deterred our initiatives. When I say our, it basically means all of you, the wow factor. It's not deterred any of the initiatives. And I do see a very, very bright future of IA, which is being anchored by the Women's Circle. And I actually truly believed when I conceived this idea that we must have a Women's Circle across in India. When I conceived this idea, it was in my mind that someday it is going to take newer heights. This particular circle is going to contribute to take it to newer heights. And India, across 170 plus chapters that we have of IA across the globe, India is the first one to start the Women's Circle in IA. And I think now the story is going to get replicated very soon. At least I would say initially in Asia, and then let us see. It's going to touch in the western part of the world as well. Day is not far, I believe. We already have the chairperson of IA in Global, Ms. Janita John. So we are led by a powerful lady, I would say, and I have personally interacted and met her also. She's quite dynamic. She's too good, actually, I would say, in a profession as well as we could not call her to share her story, but I recollect in the last journal, September, Sana, you have published Janita's story, and it is I would say quite heart touching also at the same time, because you really see that how a woman has risen to that height along with support. family support also, which is extremely critical, I must say. So that's a story I'm sure we are going to build on, and all of us are going to narrate that sort of a story in the coming months, years, decades, and in a very different format. Uh, I don't have any story as such, but I can say one thing, that women have different roles to play. Yeah, they are a daughter, and then they are a wife, mother, grandmother, different roles they play. And somewhere they do influence and support the life of not only themselves, but also of the family. And when I say family, it is the husband, the children, yeah, grandchildren, and all of it. I have been no exception to it. So I've been quite influenced by my mother. Uh, Most of you know, and it's not a very large audience, so perhaps all of the audience might be aware of it, that I have done a Jyotish Acharya from Bharati Vidya Bhavan. And the seeds were actually sown by my mother only. Uh, she never directly said that, but I think the inclination towards religious and spiritual pursuits was to a large extent contributed by her attempts when I was in class 12th. Yeah, and that's how actually it all started. And I feel that it has in many forms helped me as an individual, as a professional also. I'll be writing on this professional excellency in through astrology in the next article, which is there as the in the IA journal. So I'm going to put that, and I'm going to pen down certain things which I've also seen and observed, not only in my case but so many cases I've observed. So I'm going to pen down also that. I think to contribute, and I'm talking about myself, contribute to IIA wholeheartedly, though there has to be an inclination. An individual must have an inclination to contribute towards society, towards professional fraternity, but it has to have a support from the family at the same time. So my wife, she's in PwC as a director in tax, and she has a hectic schedule, but I think there is good quantum of support that I get from her, and that is why I am able to contribute in this form. Uh, we have coined this particular webinar as a work-life balance. So what else could be a work-life balance that right now the television is on a mute, and my younger daughter is actually watching it, and while I'm speaking over here. So that's the best work-life balance I can think of as an example, live example. Yeah, and she just came in the room and said, "No, I want to watch the television. I had no options." So anyway, I am looking forward to hearing a lot of stories from all of the speakers. I think we've got Navita, and excellent speaker, and I'm sure before that we have Subhashish also. He has a versatile experience. I know of him. Kamaljeet, Anu, Yukti, and Sana Yokil. I'm sure it's going to be a mesmerizing next 1 hour for the complete audience. So won't take too much of time stealing the show. And back to you, Sana. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siddeshwar. Yeah. So thank you, Siddeshwar, for your opening remarks. And now I would like to introduce Anupriya. So Anupriya has a very rich industry experience of about 14 years plus, and she is heading the compliance team in Genpact. She also carries the experience in anti-bribery compliances and fraud investigation. And apart from there, she has a 6-year-old boy, so she's definitely managing the work life. And that's the time that we would like to hear something from Anu as to how motivational it could be, how inspirational it could be to balance these two ends. So over to you, Anu.
Thank you, Yukti. Just checking that audible. Yeah, okay. So a very good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this session. I hope you find us all engaging in sharing our war stories of how we are managing, for the last many years, and especially in the last 6 months in the times of COVID, where work as well as homework has all amplified by virtue of, there being no downtime, kids being at home, hubby being at home, but at the same time, the days becoming longer because, most of us work with local international clients, and hence, we need to ensure that we're always available, or we perceive that we need to be always available for everybody to manage their requirements as well. So just as a quick introduction, as Yukti mentioned, I am working with Genpact. I lead up the regulatory compliance solution for the organization. And along with that, I'm also leading up the CSR team for my, for my vertical within Genpact, which essentially takes care of all requirements to, in the times of COVID, when one cannot do actual visits, it actually helps companies, or it helps the company to reach out to people through Feed 20 Million programs, through, virtual sessions with girls' schools to help them empower themselves by writing CVs, etc. So working very, embracing that aspect of the journey as well. So CSR as well as work is what keeps me occupied. I've also been very focused in ensuring that, in the entire digital transformation companies all over the globe are undertaking, how do we as an organization help companies manage that? So I help the organization design and create digital assets to help companies, again, manage requirements to compliance regulations in the third-party and anti-bribery space. And basically, it helps them to, A, make decisions faster, B, be more cost effective, and 3, be more compliant in the long run towards regulations and global world requirements. So very happy to be on the call and on the webinar, and I look forward to discussing more about my journey. Anything that you want to know at any points of time, please feel free to let me know, and I will definitely share and detail my experiences more. So just in terms of, I think because it's an interactive session, I'll also, won't get down to many details. I'll just focus on, in my entire career stint of 14 years, 5 things that have helped me, A, grow as an individual, be where I am today, leading a team of 100+ professionals, working with the top 20 Fortune plus companies in the world, ensuring that I'm up to speed in terms of digital transformation. What's actually the secret mantra or the success mantra of actually achieving everything, and at the same time trying to balance my home as well with the requirements of an active 6-year-old son. So I think I'll just summarize it and keep it short and crisp in 5 main things that have helped me. Most importantly, investing in yourself is, I think, one of the things that as women we sort of put as the back burner, but a continuous investment in yourself is, I think, one of the things that has helped me throughout my career. So when I started my career, I was an MBA, but in the 13 years in the organization, I have ensured that I am a certified financial risk manager from GARP. I've also recently done a course, an executive program in strategy from the IIM Calcutta. And I've constantly upskilled myself to ensure that, what I was doing 13 years back, I'm absolutely not doing anything. My role has completely transformed, and which is because, the client's requirement has transformed, the environment in which I'm working has transformed. So a complete digital transformation, from someone who absolutely had no idea how to plug on the laptop when I started work, because back then we didn't, to actually, leading up and working and discussing how AI, ML, machine learning, automation is going to help companies achieve what they want, has been a drastic shift. But yes, investing in myself to ensure that I'm staying up the curve is obviously something which, all of us as women need to do. It requires us to work much harder than anybody else at a lot of times. And I'll give you the example. When I was doing my MBA, when I was doing my IIM course, it was nearly a year-long course, which required me to actually leave office at 6 o'clock. 7 to 10 were classes at the IIM centers, and return back home at 11 and take up work again. So it's tough because you have to ensure that you're you're giving your best because it's a course that you've subscribed to, and at the same time not give up your your professional commitments and manage home. But those 10-12 months have actually paid off. Today, when I look back, that it seemed impossible at that point of time. But I think it's just with the right motivation that you have in yourself that yes, we can do it. It really is the right way to pave for yourself as an individual who needs to grow in the career, who needs to ensure that she is continuously learning and evolving herself in this journey to break the glass ceiling. The second important aspect that I think is very important is people and team engagements. So no great leader, or no leader in fact, will grow without the support and without an army of equally supportive and absolutely empowered and hardworking team without him or her. And in that I think not just COVID has actually amplified. As women, we understand that we need to be available in the mornings for the school sessions of our children. We need to take a break in the evenings to put them off to sleep, to be ready for the day tomorrow. So to manage a work schedule, we know the art of doing that. But are we giving the same flexibility to our teams to ensure that the women with us are absolutely getting trained, are absolutely being provided the right flexibility so that they can also grow, and they also are more they also see the organization and they see the leader as someone that they could actually believe in, that they could actually look up to, they could actually confide in, and they actually want to work for you. So you need to have someone to work for you. To have someone work for you, you actually need to provide them the right mentoring, the right flexibility, and you have to invest time. But trust me, a little bit of time and investment in understanding your team's requirements, it really paves the way, because I've been fortunate enough to have the lowest attrition in my team. I have the highest diversity in my team. I have 60% of my team is women. And the amount of hard work that they put in, I mean, it's amazing, because absolutely, they understand the flexibility. They are all hardworking. We manage our schedules in a way that we are able to meet professional requirements and, meet our internal home requirements as well. So I would say really invest in your team, nurture the teams around you, engage with your teams, understand what are they going through. That's really going to, one size fits all will not work. You need to carve out that whole approach. I've been fortunate that the organization has given me that flexibility. That's why I've been able to stick on without any breaks, despite having a child. I've been able to do that, and I would recommend that as well. Third most important is exercising and managing your health. I don't think there is anything more important than investing in your health, because there is absolutely no substitute in terms of saying that I will eat right, or I will exercise over the weekends. It is as important as breathing for all of us. And again, in our daily schedule, we might not say we have our 30 minutes, we have our 40 minutes. We need to find the time. How do I do it? Just as a small example, this is an aberration when I'm sitting. Most of the calls that I do, I stand and I am trying to walk at the same spot. I try to achieve 10,000 steps a day. Mornings, definitely, I cannot start my morning without my 30 to 45 minutes of exercise. So invest that time, find that schedule, but invest that time in yourself, because trust me, if you're sick, you really will not be able to achieve anything that you want to. So health is number one that we women tend to ignore, but that is absolutely critical for us in the long run. And I just think lastly is find that time off. With COVID or even before COVID, not finding the right balance of when to switch off your phone or when to be available for your family, we have to let go of that. Keeping the phone away, keeping the laptop away, keeping it on silent so that it is not distracting you when you're actually with your family is something which is absolutely important, because it will give you peace of mind. When we are at work, I think we deliver 120% of our commitment, because we as women, we tend to put in our best at anything and everything we do. So that same commitment at work, try to replicate it at home. It might be a little tough in the first few months, but if you make a schedule, whatever schedule works well, keep that phone out, keep the laptop out, spend time on weekends, do something. Even at COVID times, to say that, what do? I don't have to go anywhere. There are no holidays I could take. Absolutely not. The whole team is being encouraged to take a week off, to take Fridays off. We are making it in such a way that, you are getting to spend time with family, and you need to do that. So please unplug yourselves, because work will never stop. Work will never end. It will just keep piling on. The days, like I said, are becoming longer. It is up to us to manage our schedules and prioritize what we need to do. Do work, but equally spend time with your family, because they're the ones because of whom we are here and we are what we are today. So I think those were brief snippets of 5-6 secret sauces that I wanted to share about my journey. It's been pretty exciting. I've grown a lot in the organization. I've grown a lot as a professional, and just wanted to share that's how I manage my life and how I manage my teams to stay engaged in the entire journey of my climb to leadership. Not there, but yes, in my climb to leadership.
Thanks, Anu. That was really inspiring. And some of the key takeaways which I can personally take is investing on yourself, both in terms of knowledge, both in terms of exercise, both in terms of having a balance and having a schedule so that you are able to grow in the right manner. And the most important takeaway which I found was how you manage the team. It was really inspiring. You take that time. The diversity which you have mentioned is something really worth applauding, as well as the effort you take in understanding the requirement and making sure that they are available for the family. And of course, professional commitment they have to meet in any case, and upgrading yourself. Your story on how you manage the IIM journey with your work and with your family, we have a lot to learn from you. Thanks, Anu, for excellent thing. One question I have for you is, how did you make sure that you are able to do everything within 24 hours? Because I know schedule does help, but sometimes the client requirements and the professional requirements are very pressing, and you have to meet those commitments or deadlines.
So I've learned the art of sleeping less, because absolutely that is the one thing which you have to give up something. So sleeping and not watching television, I think everybody finds it bizarre, but I would rather spend the extra time that I have to sleep rather than watch television. That's what I do. I watch zero television or very minimal, and I try to sleep as much, but I have to compromise on my sleep. So that's how I manage my 24 hours to make it successful otherwise.
Yeah, really inspiring, Anu. So thanks for sharing this.
I have a question too.
Yeah, please.
So Anu, I have a question that how do you keep yourself entertained?
Yeah.
Good one.
So I do a lot of, I enjoy a lot of baking. So again, before COVID, this is during COVID, a lot of baking and a lot making ice creams. I've started doing a lot of that on weekends, honestly. And I'm telling you, exercise is what really calms me and really is my breather for that 1 hour that I do. I put on my favorite music and I'm just with myself without anyone, disturbing me. That's really one entertainment that I would not give up for anybody or anything, my exercise time. And the second is a lot of CSR work that I do. It just pulls me off work, and it's very, fulfilling, because you're not doing anything work related, but at the same time you work with the team, enjoying yourself and trying to make it you're trying to do something for society without it being technical, and really using your gray cells to really think through how to make it happen. So those are the two things which absolutely keep me motivated for work the balance of the day, I would say.
Oh, fantastic, Anupriya. It was really, really inspiring story. So now our next speaker, Mr. Subhashish, he's heading the risk and compliance team in Genpact, and he's also the board member of IIA Delhi chapter. So I'm sure Mr. Subhashish has a very interesting story to share with us. So over to you, Subhashish.
Thanks, Kamalji. And let me firstly remind Anu one of the biggest entertainments that she forgot to call out, which is her 6-year-old himself. I think that's possibly the bigger source of entertainment than even your exercise, and which is, I guess, the case for many mothers, right? Your kids, I guess, are a bigger source of entertainment. I'm fortunate enough to have got to see the two of them together on many occasions, so I know how much of an entertainment that is.
So honestly, Sana, thanks firstly for having this forum. As I thought about it, women's circle session talking about how women been successful, what was I going to really talk about? But as I reflected, I think there's few things which I thought were worth sharing. One, I think sometimes you learn from your parents what to do, and sometimes you learn what you think they could have done differently. And I think my mother was a classic example of what I learned very early on in life, and which thereafter I've told almost any woman that I've met, including friends back in college days while at work. My mother was a very, very active communist leader. Communist leader to the extent that she would stand in the middle of a street in Calcutta and manage to stop the entire city if she wanted. That's the kind of power she had as a communist leader. When she chose to marry my father, who was a police officer, and soon went on to deputation in the Intelligence Bureau, obviously she had to give that up. She was a professor, she gave that up. She gave that up because she thought that was the right way of bringing up her two children, my brother and myself. As I grew up, and when I spoke to my mother many times over, I always told her the worst thing she did was give up her career. Because it had to be that there was to come a point when both of us grew up and both of us had our own careers to chase. And which, honestly, if you think of it, it's not a very long time. It takes 21 years for a child to grow up and get out into the world and really not have parents time too much as left for parents. And parents are still pretty young back then. So I think that's the one thing that taught me that never ever have anyone that you can influence tell you that, there are things at home because of which I can't cope up with work. I need to give up work. I'm going to quit. I'm going to take on something lighter in life. Or I'm relocating and my husband's in some other city, you don't have an office there. And therefore give up, and I'll have to give up working. That's something I learned from that one sort of single thing that stayed in me. And I can have I would say I would take pride in saying, and I think Sana set this up very well, she's ensured that I can't say anything that's not true because Anu's been in our setup for 14 years, and Anu needed to stay true because I was in Spal. So Anu knows this, that we've maintained this right through, that people have got married, moved out to Ambala, Chandigarh, Bhopal, God knows where. Someone went for a year and a half to Canada because her husband had some project for about a year and a half in Canada. We never let go of talent. And I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about stuff 6, 7, 8 years back, when this whole concept of remote working, work from home, there was no concept of Zoom, nothing. But I've always believed that you've got to set up a work environment that has the ability to embrace talent and keep talent no matter where they are. So my request to all you terrific women leaders, budding leaders, current leaders, and as you go to bigger roles, learn to speak up and say that you can still deliver no matter where you are. Like I tell my clients, why do you expect me to charge lower rates because my team sits in India and higher rates because the rest of the team sits in US? Do you pay for their house rental, or do you pay for their brain power? The brain power of the same professional in India is no less just because they sit in a lower cost country. They're the same. And therefore, our team, we charge the same rates as what a Big Four charges in the US. And that's been our USP. You charge for the mind. So what if a lady or a woman has to actually be sitting in a location which is not where their office is? They can still contribute as much. Sometimes client requirements may not allow you to take on client-facing mandates. So what? Can't they contribute to knowledge capital? Can't they contribute to training? Can't they contribute to practice matters? They can. To Anu's point, she leads up a team 60% diversity. Again, happy to share the team that I overall lead up, which is about now 700 people. Across the board, we are at 51% diversity. Who would believe in consulting? You can have a 51% diversity. Consulting was meant to be a profession where it's out there on the street, everyday travel, complete, mayhem of a life. No, you got to create an environment. We do calls early morning because I was once told that there were enough young mothers who had to wake up early because their kids had to go to school, and therefore they preferred having a little bit of a morning slot because they were anyway up and about. And we run something called a revenue pipeline call, and Anu was aware of this. We started running that call at 9 in the morning. Now, having finished a very late night, 9 was not particularly comfortable, but it worked for a large part of the team. And that's what made it successful. Then, like, again, was called out. Mothers need to take time off in the evening, either to put the kids on, or it could be, just spending some quality time with them in the evening, whatever. All happen to be either US or Europe. Those evening hours are crucial for us. But so what? We still created an environment where we said, no, people will take that time off because that's important. The point I'm making is organizations are obligated to create environments that can retain talent no matter where they are. They have to create environments that will provide flexibility for pursuing diversity way beyond what would normally be expected. But the only sort of message I would have for budding women leaders is find that balance, create that balance, and ask for that balance. It's your right to ask for that balance. And if you are with a good team, a good employer, a good organization, trust me, a leader is not worth being a leader if they can't create that environment, and it doesn't depend if it's a man or a woman. And by the way, it's not a current day event. One of the professionals who I guess most people in the IIS circles would know about is Satya Berera. 40 years in PwC. So how long back did she start her career when possibly women pursuing a career was not the most obvious thing to talk about? And I've been fortunate enough to have many chats with her to know, some of her anecdotal bits. I don't know her as well as many others might, but I know enough anecdotal stuff of how she's dealt with it, and many years back. So it's not that and India has provided enough and more of them. One of the senior most bankers in the country, I don't know how many of you would remember, but Nana Lal Kidwai. Nana Lal Kidwai was one of the most powerful HSBC leaders, most powerful banking leaders back then, a leader in HSBC many years back. I think it's about 20 years back. So India is enough of it. India has provided many of these leaders. Indira Nooyi is the most obvious name, but there are many more. And therefore, I think the aspect that we need to all get over is this concept of glass ceiling. And I remember being at ISB Mohali doing a session. And I'll be a little provocative on this one, because I was extremely provocative at the Mohali session. And my message to all you women leaders is, why do you even talk about glass ceiling? Who told you there's a glass ceiling? Who gives men the right to say there's a glass ceiling? The more you talk about a glass ceiling, the more you're accepting that there is a concept of glass ceiling. Talent has to show through. Anu is one of the fastest growing leaders that our entire practice had. We're a 700-member team. Our service line leader, Katie, personally recognizes her. Our global CEO, Tiger, recognizes her in a team of 100,000 people. Where's the glass ceiling? She's had enough men peers around her. So on that, I do want to leave the group with a very provocative message. Please never ever talk about glass ceiling. Don't entertain glass ceiling. The minute you entertain it, you try and make something a reality which is never meant to have been and is not to be. If you are in a setup that doesn't respect you as a professional, you as an individual, doesn't give you the space that you need, doesn't give you the flexibility, find yourself a better place. There will be a better place. You're in a wrong place if diversity has to justify itself. I'm not going to draw this any longer because it's a topic I'm super passionate about. I can take up the entire hour, but there are some delightful speakers after me as well. So I'm going to keep it at that, and happy to take any questions anyone has.
Thanks, Subhashish. It was so inspiring to listen, and leaders like you is what females and all we look forward for. who are so supportive and who are wanting everyone to grow in the organization. And I am sure each one of us will understand that there is no glass ceiling, as you mentioned. It is very true. It's all in the mind, and it is how you explore yourself and grow yourself is what really matters. And great to hear that you have always supported and helped so many, not only like females, but many other professionals in keeping that balance, as well as ensuring that they grow in a professional career. Wonderful to hear from you, your leadership skills, which were in terms of managing such a big team and making sure that there is so much of diversity as well in the thing. You're right, consulting requires a lot of travel, and it's very, very difficult, specifically for females to manage, but you made it happen for them, and it requires a lot of support from the leadership. Otherwise, it's really not possible for females to push back to the client and say, no, we are not available unless there's a support from the leaders at the top. So thanks for your thing, and thanks for letting us know that there is no glass ceiling, and we just have to keep this thought away and focus on growth. So thank you, Shubhashish.
Thank you, Shubhashish. Thank you so much. And before introducing our next speaker, Navita Shrikant, who's my personal favorite, I mean, I'm myself really inspired by her. I would like to just add on one part here. It is first webinar in the series where we wanted people to come in and share the story. So we do have esteemed speakers today. But then later we would definitely want people from audience to join and share their stories. So we are definitely looking forward to that. Now we'll move to our next speaker, Navita. She has very rich industry experience. She is a forensic expert. She has served biggest brands across the globe, and I'm sure you have a lot to learn from Navita. So over to you, Navita.
Thanks, Kawaljeet. Well, you are my favorite. You inspire with your work-life balance.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Siddeshwar, for the invitation. Thank you, Sana. And pleasure to be part of the group. And Anu, I really enjoyed your story. I mean, it echoes well. Very inspiring. And Subhashish, you talked of Satya. So I started my career when Satya was a manager. So I'm from the days of the fraternity. It's Satya Varera, Usha Rajiv, and you can well imagine that how we are groomed. So I think that is where it really makes a big difference, because what Shubhashish rightly said, when you have leaders like Satya, 92 when I joined Pricewaterhouse, the only thing I remember that we had to work on audits, and straight away we are asked, you'll have long nights, and you're coming from a family, and family doesn't know that why would she return at 1:30 from audit? I mean, who comes at 1:30 a.m. in 92? And talking of ecosystem, right ecosystem to comfort. And I remember, I think it was probably Satya or Anu or Usha, one of them spoke with my parents, and she said, well, don't worry, we take care of our girls as our daughters, and you'll be rest assured that if she travels after 9 o'clock, she'll be accompanied by not just in a taxi, but she'll have a colleague traveling and dropping her back. That was one line of assurance, and ever since things changed, I could be working all night, returning at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, not even once. So very right balance that, when the firm says it convincingly, and when the family is convinced, things really change, and then you roll forward. And certainly going back to those days, frankly, I always get surprised when people talk of being a feminist. I personally don't identify. I say, well, what do you mean a feminist? I'm a human, and so are others. So it's one platform, it's one world. We are born alike. So, why do I have to think that I'm someone different? And I would rather say that, okay, yes, I can probably take the compliment that we can multitask, because we do switch hats in 24 hours for a lot of roles. But I equally always say that I give that balance credit to men as well. Being a father is not easy. Being a husband is not easy. being that leader. For me, there is no distinction of a male or a female. But yes, when we talk of practical challenges and something which probably I didn't put down in my story, Sana, this is something personal, but I actually am sharing it, that coming in that Indian background, and so I had a love marriage, and this is a practical thing. You have a love marriage and something your in-laws are totally against. Anyway, a fight and you get married. I come from a very business family, so there's no working women in my family. My mother, they were all great household women. They've done a lot in society. So I remember my mother-in-law, actually 2 years later, she said, well, why do you need to work? You come from a family where none of the women are working. And this is the time that I was planning to do my CIA back in 2000. And I'm preparing for my examinations. I'm attending to Pricewaterhouse as well. And I'm doing the course at home as well. And this is when a question comes from mother-in-law, why do you think you want to work, acquire additional knowledge? So this is when I think it goes back, that how passionate you are about your life, your career, as well as you are willing to put in 48 hours in those 24 hours to take care of all the people around you, the ecosystem, the society, what it expects out of you as a daughter-in-law, but not giving up on your dream. And this is what I told to her. I said, I assure you that you shall see nothing less, no less commitment from me as a daughter-in-law. You expect, and imagine I am a North Indian getting married into a South Indian family who has to prove that she is a very good South Indian daughter-in-law as well. So I said, no problem. I will wake up at 5 and I'll do my vegetable chopping as well. And I'll do all the household cooking and get to Pricewaterhouse. But these are very genuine, very natural stories we all go through. And this is, I'm talking of 20 years back, but it just makes you more agile. Actually, you learn to adopt different expectations, which make you a good leader when you are in a business scenario. So these are personal situations, personal hurdles which you face, which you should actually take them as opportunities, because they bring out the best of you. I actually realized, and what Anu was saying, that she started sleeping less. For me, it was a forced circumstance which actually, gave me sleepless night. But I said, no, I'm not giving up on my career. I'll do my household duties as well. And I'm going to do 10 hours or 12 hours of Pricewaterhouse as well, because, I see Satya doing the same thing. But what did it bring out? I actually became a much more smarter person with time. And I knew that I could deliver much more in that limited time. I could prioritize. So my very simple takeaway is that there is no shortcut to success. It's not going to be served on platter. It comes with hard work. And what I tell myself, and trust me, I do that every night. I dream what I want to be. So dreams are really your own space. No one takes away. A very interesting story, since we talk of commitments and work-life balance, trust me, it happens that we go through in life and we'll get so busy. We become partners. I've been a partner at Ernst & Young, and we've seen that life. I've been World Bank. So these are very crazy, lot of expectations again to deliver. And there comes a moment in life when you actually slip on your personal commitments. And I'm sharing an example that changed my life. So my mother was visiting me and I just changed her job. And again, I'm a managing director. So it's a very senior position. I have to lead the whole company. She said that she'll come and help me out and set up my home. I said, okay, mom, there's all support. There are drivers, maids, everything. But she wanted to be around. And this is a new place, new first week. I just couldn't devote time with her. And we take relations for granted because she's my mother. She knows how busy I am. And I have my all US clients with whom I'm on calls late night. So I won't have time to have breakfast with her, and I'm just going to rush to work. She spent that week. She helped me with my shopping, that urgent, and she left. And next day, my driver asked me, and while he was driving me to work, he said, ma'am, did you call your mother? Did she reach home? I said, well, she must have. I said, well, I tried calling once. So this whole thing happened almost for 48 hours. And whenever I try my mom, she wouldn't answer, or she would be busy and I'll get busy. So pretty much 48 hours later, my driver actually parked the car. He turned back. He said, "I apologize, and I'm your driver. I should be asking you, but do you mind giving me your mother's number?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Because in 48 hours, you've not asked your mother, has she reached home back in Delhi? And if you don't mind, can I connect you with your mother?" And you know, that moment for me, and this is almost good 20 years later that you were a leader, but you suddenly realize that there are these wake up calls when someone tells you that, have you taken people for granted? So that again changed, you know, prioritizing. So my again, an important takeaway here is that you will have those reminders, take them positively, learn those lessons. And as Anu also said, that, you know, you should know when to put your phone down. You'll not do it for 3 years, but there'll come a time when someone will say, knock, knock, it's time to be a balanced person. So it's time to devote time to family. One more example which I wanted to share, and which I always insist, that you know, I see young girls or women, you know, they've been a manager and they're in two minds. Should they get married or not married? You know, what happens if they will give up their client lead roles? And especially in consulting, it does happen that what would you be client facing? My simple answer is, don't worry about would you remain client facing or not. Important is that when you are developing your client relationships, how indispensable are you for your client? If you are, the client will not let go of you. So you can very well come back and tell your partner that I'll manage, I'll run the show, I'm just coming out for this maternity leave for 6 months or 8 months. But the clients, so the whole idea is that when you are with a client, don't take any delivery, any output for, you know, it's just a shortcut, it's just one report, because this is what that one report is going to build your career. And this is how your client actually will treat you as a professional, that she is dedicated, she's up at any hour, and she delivers the best product. So even if you suddenly have a gap of a 6 months, 8 months, or a priority attending to a child, the client, for your client, you are indispensable. The other thing which I was...
Navita, I'm just interrupting in between. I just received a message from Siddheshwar that he has another session to start. I just want to thank you. Thank you, Siddheshwar, for joining us for this wonderful session and setting the theme for the event. And we'll look forward to have you in future for all our upcoming events which we are planning. And thanks a lot.
Surely, Sana, and my apologies, Navita. I had to just stop because I had to log out, and I didn't want to do it abruptly. So, though this was also an abrupt, but I didn't want to do it otherwise and log off. So, thanks to all of you. Thanks, Subhashish, Anu, Yukti, and Kanwaljit. I look forward to participate in the future events that the WOW platform is going to organize. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Siddheshwar. No, I'll keep it short. I think both Anu and Subhashish have covered the major aspects. The other thing I always want to again say that some of you could be doing, you know, you are in IA profession, but where does it leave you in the profession? So, you know, do you think out of the box? And this is not again about being a male or female issue, but really, you know, you're not there just to do a job. Think out of the box. Be a business leader. In fact, yesterday or day before, I got a call, and this is again I'm sharing. Someone said, "Well, I have a forensic audit to do, and this is not a case where they're suspected or suspecting some fraud or, but it's just a preventive audit." And it kind of struck me. And before a few minutes later, Sana and I were having a call. I said, "Sana, what is stopping IA fraternity from doing preventive forensic audits? You know, why have you not thought about it? And why shouldn't you be doing it? Because when it comes to investigations, of course, people like me who've been on the investigative side, where our bread and butter is investigations, but why shouldn't IA profession, who understands the company, who understands the value chain pretty clearly, who understands the management role, the role of the board, and understands both financially and operationally, is the right person to actually do a preventive forensic audit?" You know, especially when it comes to these large amount of loans which are being turned out, bankers would feel highly comfortable if they can have a, you know, hand holding with an experienced auditor who can actually look at in a more comprehensive way from the strategy, from the risk management, and any vulnerabilities of fraud risk or corruption. So, you know, so the whole idea is that there is no one who tells you what is your remit in terms of profession, or it's not that the Western world is going to tell you that this is your framework. Well, the framework starts with you. If you are creating a new product, and if it's a product that you brainstorm in a group, you can create a right ecosystem, have the right standard, the Western world is again going to listen to you. So there is no limitation to what you do or how you think. Create new products. And just to share an example on create new products, so if you all remember that back in early 2000 there were internal audit departments, or they were early birds or shootouts of pure play fraud investigation departments. There was no concept of fraud risk management. No one knew what fraud risk management is or what anti-fraud activities, until the time when SOX happened, Enron happened, and suddenly we hear the new word called as anti-fraud program and controls. And we are all trying to figure out what this SOX is, what anti-fraud program and controls. Novartis used to be my client, and I'm visiting Novartis, and you know, so you won't see much of what you call methodology or guidance notes on what anti-fraud programs and controls. And that time, I think Novartis was almost what, a $35 billion company. I met with the head of risk, head of internal audit, and I said, well, why wouldn't you have someone independent, not a compliance person, not an internal audit person, not a finance person, not a legal department, but that independent person who is actually looking at the overall scenario of, or rather the overall ecosystem of anti-fraud programs and controls. And they like the idea. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, what I'm saying is that create this function where this person is fully independent, has full support of the board and the audit committee, and importantly the CEO, and can interact with different functions. And they like the idea. And trust me, that job was created. And I remember Dan Vasella as the CEO and also the head of the chairman of the board. And you know, when we're discussing the role and profile, he actually said, Navita, okay, so your mandate is, would you then spend time and tell me what should be the 5 things which should keep me awake at night? So do you realize that again, it's not about Novartis, but the point is, when you talk with your conviction and when you're able to expand out, that you could see it in a holistic way, even though it's a new concept, a new product, but to step back and to work through the details, that you can convince the clients in a very logical way that why there is a role and why this function needs to be created. And that time, these were very early days. I think 2001, 2, they were all the big Fortune 500 companies were in early days of, you know, looking at anti-fraud programs and controls, and every company was learning from each other. And this is the time when I kind of jumped onto the bandwagon of, you know, what are those anti-fraud programs and controls, and how to look at them in a holistic way in a, you know, a $30 billion company. So again, my takeaway is that you may not find a lot of precedents, and you know, think out of the box, create those products, and do your homework, look at what's happening globally. And when you connect, and especially people like us, you know, when we see you know, COVID is the right time. Now I'm, you know, COVID, there is downturn, there is impact on the numbers, there is impact on business, there is value chain breaking down. We as internal auditors cannot be doing those routine internal audits as usual again. So it's time for us to again think that how do we handle COVID and what are those risks which will emerge. So those are my key important takeaways. Sana, I leave it open because it's an interactive session. If anyone has a question or a suggestion.
Yeah, Namita, thanks for sharing this. I really like the passion which is in you, and every sentence you have a thing of dreaming big and dreaming really, really big to make it happen. That's really inspiring, and obviously, like your suggestion of thinking and creating new products and services, because that's only something which keeps on going and growing. And definitely like your suggestions of taking a step back and looking at the whole thing and spending time with family is also really relevant and important suggestions. And as you rightly said, there is no concept of male or female, it's a concept of professional and a professional commitment and a professional being available to serve to the best of their capability to the clients. So thanks for sharing this. And it's really like amazing to listen to Anu, Subhashish, and Namita. All three of you have put it in a perspective. With Subhashish, we got a leader view of a male supporting a female, not only female but a professional as a whole, the whole community to grow. And Anu gave a wonderful perspective of how she manages her time, and we heard like how she is growing and the one of the fastest growing leader in her companies with such a good balance and keeping the things and being so agile, which Namita also like said that you learn an agility based on this thing. So some questions like which I would really like all three of you to answer one by one is like, what is one thing which you feel like which makes women really much more suited for internal audit? Because I personally feel, like, being in this field, that we go into depth, we know how to listen, and we know how to actually understand and have a better emotional intelligence. That's what like my personal feeling is, but that's being little diverse, like being more towards women, but want to hear more from you all.
Well, I can jump. Well, I think why I would say that we are good at internal audit. Again, it's a very multitask. You know, this is an area where you're looking at a broader picture. And I think being a woman, as a woman, you do have a holistic role, be it in a family, be it in a community. You tend to attend to several roles and you try and fit in together. So I think women are in a way very good connectors, and as connectors they understand the value chain quite importantly, quite well. And coming to process efficiencies, I won't say that by nature women are good at finding faults. I don't want to get into that. But no, it's the other way around, or we are good at pointing out a lot of recommendations. But I think it's just a nature of being a importantly, what I feel is that we are good connectors, so we can see a big picture very fast. In terms of visualization, I think women, I would imagine, to be better at visualizing. And definitely when it comes to risk assessments, I think we are more sensitive again. You know, we just don't apply. Again, it's not a very logical, you know, that mind which says 2 + 2 is 4. We would say, well, 2 and 2 could be 22 as well. Or am I missing something here? So I think it's the both analytical bend and the holistic picture and being a connector that we are suited for the profession.
So Subhashish, we'd like to hear from you.
Very honestly, you would get a slightly more, I guess, balanced view on that. I don't think I'm going to say men or women make better auditors, but I think the attributes of women, which in my view make outstanding professionals, and some of that actually makes a good internal audit. So the first part of it is, in general, I'd always believe women are more diligent. That's a very fundamental difference. If they are not going to do something, they will tell you, well, this is not going to happen. You would normally not find someone take on a task and then come back last, oh, sorry, it didn't happen. And which builds a certain degree of credibility and reliability in a profession. And in the world of internal audit, I think that's very important for the simple reason that your commitment is out to an audit committee. Your commitment is out to risk. Very, very senior professionals were set up. We don't realize this, but if you look at it, careers of individuals who've been successful with internal audit end up requiring senior interaction very soon, unless you're unsuccessful, unfortunately. Successful audit professionals usually end up being part of audit committee meetings, prep for audit committee, management committee meetings, management committee -1, no below that. And I think that ability to communicate effectively, I think women are good at communicating. That's a big part of it. Being able to get a balanced point of view across, that's important. And I think the most important one in my view is, to me, a successful internal auditor is one who finds out ground reality better than those who don't. I think I've had enough experience of auditors in my team who've been women. The way they manage to connect with process owners, the way they glean out information, far more comprehensive. I would say men sometimes are excitable. They pick up one piece of information and say, "Oh, I found a big observation. That's it." And when you get down to reviewing, you figure out that there's a fair amount of peeling the onion that could have happened that hasn't happened. Usually, I've seen less of that with women auditors. They tend to be a lot more balanced, and those are some of the things that I think make a good auditor. But again, I would definitely say that there have been terrific men as well who have seen to be outstanding internal auditors. So I'm not going to take that away from men, but yeah, some terrific attributes of women that help for sure.
Thanks,
One thing I would call out, is I think also the willingness to learn. And you heard Namita say that, you heard Anu say that. That I think is a big differentiator. And I say this story over and over again. I'll say it in front of Anu again. She was our professed Foreign Corrupt Practices Act expert for a GE business. GE back then was a $125 billion business. She learned FCP on her flight from India to US. Thankfully, we didn't have direct flights, so I think because of hopping flights, she got more number of hours. She learned FCP on that flight from Delhi to Atlanta. I can't give more than, to Dallas. I can't give away any more than that, which part of the business I'm referring to. And by the time she got there, she was meant to be our FCP expert, helping GE get an acquisition done by them to be compliant with GE global norms. That commitment and willingness to learn, I think makes, I had the confidence she'll pull it off, she did. I think that's something extremely, extremely special about women who do well in life.
Wow. So Anu, like after this, like nothing more but to hear but
yeah, no, thanks a lot. So I just think, yeah, just echoing what Namita and Subhashish have said, eye to detail is a big aspect of what we can do, because overall we just enjoy attention to detail, the finer aspects of life we enjoy more. The other one, like what can go wrong, anticipating that, being in just so many roles other than work, we've seen things going wrong at home. We anticipate and we know, the drivers are not going to turn up, the vegetable stall is going to be shut. We just anticipate and we know it that, this is how life is going to go wrong. And applying that to work also becomes like much more easier, because inherent we know that things can go wrong. So what are the mitigating controls we have to put in to manage and anticipate and deal with those? So I think that definitely helps in our helps in our job, because we're doing that at home and we understand that, and we mature both professionally and at home with marriage, and we're taking on more responsibilities because you just tend to think more and understand the world way better. And last is, I think, our humility to learn and agree that, yeah, we are not right at all times, and we need to learn, versus, always want to encourage ourselves, because we know that there is no substitute for learning and for knowledge in the world. So just the mere fact that we are aware that, yes, we always want to learn and we are open to open to feedback, I would say, and always wanted to learn. Again, can't generalize it. I will not say I will generalize it, but yes, these are some aspects which I think are very important in the profession that we are in.
Yeah, very, very well, said. So over to you, Sana. It was really wonderful session for the concluding remarks and to discuss.
Yeah, thanks to Anu, Subhashish, Navita for sharing your perspectives for everyone to ensure that there should be a work-life balance, the way people have to think out of the box. And I agree with Subhashish that we should always ask for what we want. We cannot get everything served in our plate. So it is really important that we should learn that as skill to ask for, and the ability to say no to certain things which we don't want. Being remaining silent on certain things and accepting as it is will not going to change the situation. With the vision of the Women's Circle is, of course, to promote the women in leadership role and to enable the career growth opportunities. And to effectuate this vision, we have laid 4 targets so far. First is, of course, giving the opportunity for networking. Second is the advocacy for the women's career acceleration. Then guidance and mentoring. And last but not the least, but very important, it is developing the leadership skills. Because it is really important, unless until women are there at the leadership role, it is strenuous to bridge the gap and promote gender diversity. So when the talk goes around promoting the gender diversity in the profession, the perception goes a little differently. Here I would like to quote Jane Galvin Lewis. She rightly mentioned, you don't have to be anti-man to be pro-women. So it's all about creating a balance. So at the Women's Circle, what we have done is we have actually created 3 focus groups to ensure that the things will go in place and all the initiatives which we are planning in the year to come can run smoothly. First, the group is for the communication and networking. They are emphasizing on improving the communication and extending network opportunities to all IIA Women's Circle members. We will be organizing few get-to-know meetings of IIA Delhi chapter women members, so that just being a member, it is really tough to know who all others are, and maybe one or the other person can be of any help. So we'll be organizing that. It will be a closed meetings, all interactive, and I would like we will extend the invitation, and it will be only on the invitation basis. It's not like the webinar which we are conducting right now. So that is something where we can discuss our problems, where we can discuss our issues, the kind of network we want. The second group is for the training and events, and their focal point is to identify the relevant topics for the women professional and organizing training, including leadership trainings. So we would like to hear from all of you what kind of trainings you are looking forward to have. We will organize that at this platform, and I hope it will be of interest to everyone and provide better guidance. Since our focus is to promote, to ensure that the Women's Circle members should get the right benefit out of it. So it is important to learn from you rather than we impose anything on it. And we will be conducting one short survey. It will be rolled out in first week of October, and where we will ask for your preferences as to what exactly you want from us. The third group is the guidance and the advising group, that group is distinctly working on extending support to IIA Delhi chapter women member and career acceleration and guidance in resuming career after a career break. That is a very important aspect where a lot of people are looking forward to have a guidance as such, in which area they have to restart, because it is something which is seen over a period of time, that if somebody is joining back after a career break, they are treated as good as a fresher. So we are also planning to hold certain sessions where they can brush up their skills and get back to at least the same position from where they were left, not exactly as a fresher. So along with us, since all of you are here, and if anyone is having any question, they want to connect with us and they want to share their stories, we'll be happy to have it. And we are also connecting the members across India through our magazine, where we are publishing the story. So we have one separate segment in the magazine, Internal Audit Today. It's a monthly magazine, and that specific magazine is covering, we ensure that it should cover at least one success story. So last month in September, we had a story from Navita, and it's really interesting, the incredible lessons which life has taught throughout the journey. And she has articulated it very well, the 10 lessons, out of which, if somebody has not read it, you should go through it. I'm sure you have already got the glimpses of what Navita has done in her life and how she is managing the things. So similarly, we are having the leaders in that section. If somebody want to share their stories, we're happy to have it. We welcome that. And that section is specifically for the women. Anyone who want to share their articles or any other thing, they're most welcome. With this, I thank you all for joining in. Subhashish, for accepting the invitation at a very short notice. And making it happen. I understand that you already had commitment and you had to leave a little early, but you are still here till the end. I'm so happy to have you. And thanks Kanwaljit and Yukti for coordinating this session. You are very well coordinated, and I hope we will set the tone right to ensure that the things will, now the ball will start moving.
Pleasure is all mine.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, see everyone once again for the upcoming.
So we'll be having this get to know meeting on 3rd of October, and we'll invite people. So we will keep only 2 meetings in a month, and it will be a group of 10 or 15 people, a short group, so that we can interact very well. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining in, and thanks to our audience for making this event really successful. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.